The Blue Bloods are here to bring you guys more quality sports content for your Thursday. We start the episode off by discussing if the NCAA will actually expand the playoffs, and if so, how big should they go? And then we bring back our beloved snake draft format for deciding which current college football head coaches we would want for the next 10 years to lead our program. We then debate which team will end up being the biggest disappointment in the 2020 season, and we wrap up this episode with another recruiting update. And this time we highlight the red hot start for the Ohio State Buckeyes. We have a full show, so let's kick it off. We're going to start with the NCAA expanding the playoffs. Brett McMurphy of the Stadium let fans know about the results from a survey that 112 athletic directors from around the country responded to. In that poll, there was a question about whether they supported playoff expansion, and if so, how large should the playoffs be moving forward. The ADs overwhelmingly responded in favor of expansion, in which 72% of them supported an 18 playoffs, while another 8% favored a 16-team playoff. A big source of disagreement, though, came in the question for where these games should take place. 53% of them said that higher seeded teams should host at their home stadiums, while the other 47% said neutral sites are preferred. So, Brandon, what is your opinion on the results of this poll, and what do you think about the current playoff format? Should we expand? Where should the games be, and who should get into the playoffs?
Yeah, so I don't know. In my opinion, I don't dislike the 14 playoff. I understand that it causes a lot of issues for a lot of schools that, they're on that fringe, maybe they're five or six, and uh, everything came down to that last week of football, that championship weekend or the conference championship weekend. Or maybe you dropped a game, at the beginning of the season, maybe a game you shouldn't have dropped. Uh, you end up being not included in the playoffs. I mean, it was a miracle that Oklahoma made it to the playoff this season after they lost to, after they lost to K State. So, um, I don't know. The 14 playoff never really bothered me. I'm not one that's super outspoken about wanting to expand it, but I would definitely be okay with an 18 playoff. I think that includes everybody. But the format that I would like to see, and I've mentioned it before, I'd like to see the champions of the Power Five conferences, um, and then three at-large teams, right? I mean, I think that's what everyone. I mean, that's the pretty much the consensus when it comes down to the 18 playoff argument. I guess there is an argument for the top eight teams in the country, uh, selected by the committee. Still, you know my feelings about the committee. Not a big fan. Um, but a 16 team playoff to me, listen, I'm always for more football, or I'm usually for more football, but in this case, 16 teams, I mean, at some point you have to just be like, okay, calm down. You know how many rounds of playoffs that is? That's so many teams. That's so many extra weeks for these players that, first of all, aren't being paid for what they're doing. So they're just putting in extra work for, I mean, some people would argue for nothing. I think that they get something out of it, but a lot of people would say, "Hey, you're really putting your body at risk for nothing at this point." So from that perspective, I think 16 teams in a playoff would be a little bit ridiculous. I don't. I just don't see an argument where you can say the 16th best team in the country should make a post or should have the chance to make it to the championship.
Yeah, I agree. 16 teams, ridiculous in my opinion. But I personally would like to see the playoffs expand. Um, and the reason is, I think you kind of highlighted it. I mean, what sport can you think of right now where if you finish fifth in the country or just in your league, you don't get a shot at the championship? I mean,
Yeah, I mean
the
all of
the
them.
the NBA, the top eight teams in their respected divisions get a shot at the title. MLB, it's what the top six, I believe. I can't think off the top of my head how the formatting is there, but and then the NFL, they just expanded to seven teams from each conference. So I think I would like to see it expand because if you're a top, let's say, seven team in the country, odds are you deserve a shot at the title and you have a good enough team. And it could have been one loss here, one bad game there. Like, you can't tell me that Oregon this past season could not have competed for a national championship. They had one really bad game against Arizona State, and they lost to a good Auburn team in which they dominated the entire game outside of 7 seconds. I think that Oregon
Right.
team really was one of the best teams in the country. I think Georgia was really good. They ran into a buzzsaw that was LSU, but I don't think you could hold anything against them. And, they had one bad game against South Carolina. Personally, this might sound a little weird. Not many people believe this. I think a 12-team playoff is the number I would aim for. So you ask why 12? Well, I think
All
it
we
should
know.
be. I think it should be similar to the NFL format where people get buys. I think the first 4 seeds should get buys in the playoff. So that leaves the other seeds fighting to get to the second round. And so here's why I like it. Logistically it makes sense in terms of who gets into the playoffs. You have room for automatic bids for all Power 5 champions. I think if you expand the playoff, you have to include that rule. I think if you win the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10, ACC or SEC, you deserve a shot at the national championship, regardless of how you feel about the strength of those conferences. We've seen Clemson repeatedly come out of this so-called weak conference in the ACC, and they go on and compete for national titles. I think another 2 or 3 positions should be given to Group of 5 schools. I'd say 2. The top 2 Group of 5 schools, which can be determined by who's the highest ranked team, should get a bid. I mean, a lot of people would say, well, what makes you think they can compete? Brandon, even as an LSU fan, even though they probably would have won, you have been a little bit nervous to play Memphis with that explosive offense in a playoff format.
I mean, whatever. Go Tigers.
I mean, yeah, go Tigers. They'd win, but it's still, you would still watch that game. I think it would still be a good game. I don't think
Zach,
the
I watched LSU Utah State. I'd watch any game that has LSU. I mean
fair
that's not
enough,
a point.
fair enough. And then I think you should leave 5 at-large bids, which go to the highest ranked teams in the college football playoff rankings.
Uh-huh.
So this would allow every conference to be represented. This would give opportunities to multiple Group of 5 schools to have that notoriety, to have the chance to make that extra money that can push that program forward. And, no Group of 5 team right now has a realistic shot of making the playoffs. Let's be honest here. Cincinnati, Memphis, Boise State, as good as they are, they're not getting into the Final Four. And I think we can all agree on that point. And in terms of where these teams would play, I like the idea of the first 3 rounds, whether that be, I guess you would have to call it the finals, the semifinals, the first round, whatever. I like these rounds being hosted by the higher seeded team. And I think the only location that should be neutral is the championship game, and it should rotate similarly to how the championship does now. Rotate it between the Rose Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Peach Bowl, whatever, I think that would be a good plan. And so this also allows more income for schools who make the playoffs and offers a small advantage for winning your conference and having a good season. The argument I hear about expansion is, well, now you're rewarding teams that didn't achieve as much as, the top 4 seeds. Well, the top 4 seeds now get a bye and they get another home game. I mean, you don't think it's an advantage if LSU in the playoffs this year got another 2 home games in Death Valley and a bye week?
Oh yeah.
That's a
1,000,000%.
gigantic advantage. And what if a Group of 5 school gets to host a team like Alabama at their stadium? Do you not think that's a small advantage for them? That's a big
Yeah.
income for them too. I mean, that stadium's going to be sold out for that game. And finally, so I don't know about you guys. A lot of these experts on ESPN, Fox Sports, whatever, they keep saying that no matter how far you expand it, there will always be an argument of we got left out, we got robbed, well, however you want to argue it. But I think the argument would be weaker at 12 teams because usually if you look at the rankings, that big divide between contenders and pretenders usually falls around the 11 to 15 range. And so putting it at 12, I think there's a bigger difference between the number 12 and 13 team than there is between the number 4 and number 5 team. And
Right.
the argument that like, oh, we got screwed and left out. Well, if you're not a top 12 team, then that's on you, man. Like that's not anyone's fault but yourself. But if you're the number 5 team in the country, you should get a shot. I mean,
Right. Okay.
that's how I
So
look at it.
yeah. So let's transition a little bit to it's a segment within a segment. I'm going to go ahead and call this one Brandon's Conspiracy Corner. So Zach, I have a few questions for you, and I just want you to answer truthfully, to the best of your knowledge. Okay.
All right, let's do it.
All right. Who's your favorite team in college football? In Division One college football, your favorite team is
Auburn.
yeah, Auburn. Okay. And who would you say your least favorite team is?
I would have to say Alabama or Georgia.
You yeah. Well, okay, Alabama. Let's go with Alabama. That's the first one you said. All
All
right,
right.
Zach. So if you want to, so you do want to expand the playoffs to a 12 team system,
I know
correct?
where you're going with this one. I already know where
Yeah,
you're going with
you
this
want
one.
so you 12 teams is what you said, right?
Yeah, 12 teams.
Okay, not 13. You said there's a big gap between 12 and 13, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so can I ask you off the top of your head, do you remember who finished number 12 in the country last year, according to
It it
this is
it
before the playoffs?
it was Auburn and Bama was 13.
Bama was 13. Okay, so there's a
Okay,
huge
so
gap
hang on.
between
Wait,
Auburn,
hang on.
and you want to include no. So you want to include the top 12 teams, is what I'm hearing.
No, 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 no. I
So
said I
no,
said the
listen,
no,
Zach.
hang on.
No, I don't.
Time
Zach,
out.
no one
Time
cares.
out.
No one cares. No
I,
one
I
cares.
could I could debunk this already. I said 2 automatic bids had to go to 2 group of 5 schools, which would automatically in this past season would have been Memphis and Boise State, which would have replaced Auburn at 12 and whoever was at number 11, which was what
Uh,
which is who was number 11 at this
Utah,
time? Utah. So
Utah.
Utah and Auburn would have been excluded because the 2 group of 5 schools would have got those bids. So Auburn wouldn't have been in it.
Okay, Zach. I mean, it's not really adding up to me.
Okay, and
I'll
time
let the
out.
listeners decide. As a
And
matter of fact, actually, you know what, Zach? I say I'm gonna let the listeners decide, but I don't think we should let the listeners decide anything else from now on. They chose Bo Jackson as the greatest player of all time, and that's just unacceptable.
all right. So before we
Unacceptable.
before we end this segment, let me make one more argument. I said the divide between 12 and 13 is clearer than 4 versus 5. This past
Okay.
season, Auburn beat Alabama. Clear divide. Georgia
Right.
was 5, Oklahoma was 4. They didn't play and they played very different opponents. So to tell who was better between Georgia and Oklahoma was harder than to tell who was better between Auburn and Bama because Auburn beat Alabama.
Yeah. I mean, but so you have Alabama at full strength. You don't think that? I
But
mean, it was already a close game.
Alabama wouldn't have been at full strength going into the playoffs.
It's a fair
Tua was
point.
out for the
People forget
season.
that. Yeah,
I
people
mean,
forget.
but before we end this segment, I'm going to dedicate about 2 minutes to let Brandon put all our listeners in their place for how they voted on social media. So, Brandon, your clock starts now.
Yeah. First of all, how dare you? Are we kidding right now? Um, everyone's, well, I hope you saw the results of the greatest college football player of all time. Uh, you disappointed me again. This is the second time in a row that, and honestly, it's just starting to show a trend. It's starting to show a trend that I cannot trust my listeners. I sit here twice a week and I try to teach you the best I can. Have you ever had a teacher who was so disappointed in your class for failing an exam? That's how I feel right now because I spend hours on end every single week preaching the gospel that is college football and telling you guys my arguments and it just doesn't get through to you. It's like I'm talking to a brick wall, which I mean, if you think about it, we're in quarantine. I'm sitting right here. I don't even see Zach. Zach's across the country doing whatever he's doing in Kansas. I'm sitting here in Louisiana just staring at my laptop, just watching this timer tick on by because I know I only have 2 minutes. Um, but how in the world are you going to pick Bo Jackson over Herschel Walker for the greatest college football player of all time? Even if you're an Auburn fan, Zach's an Auburn fan. Zach's the biggest Auburn fan I've ever met. And he just sat on here and was talking about Herschel Walker just and no one listened. Is that what I'm getting? Because I mean, Bo Jackson won by what? One vote, Zach? Is that what we said? One
Yes,
vote?
one vote. One vote.
Who's the one vote? Who I mean, someone pushed it over and I can't reach everybody, I guess, but it is certainly disappointing to know that fans of our program could just blatantly disrespect me like this again. And I guess that's where I drop the mic.
Y'all really, really upset this man. He is upset at you guys, but we're going to move on. We're bringing back the infamous Blue Blood Snake Draft. Did I just claim the Snake Draft? I did. I really, really did. Brandon's got the omnibus music, I guess.
I don't know what that was. That was something crazy.
That was something wild,
That was
but
something else. Yeah.
in case you guys
You don't
didn't
know
see,
about this.
no, I don't know anything about that. But in case you guys missed, The Athletic released a draft where different writers, I think it was 8 of them, selected which coach they would want to lead their hypothetical programs for the next 10 years. So I thought, what a perfect time to bring this idea to the Blue Bloods and do it right here with you guys on the podcast. So you guys can all debate this, when this episode drops. But The Athletic did 6 rounds of this with 8 people. So they went through like, 48 coaches, and it included a bench pick. But we're going to do the first 5 rounds with just us and have an honorable mention round. So, Brandon, here are the rules. The coach must be a current FBS head coach. So no recently retired coaches such as Urban Meyer, and no top assistants from around the country. They have to be currently a head coach at a Power 5 program. Or not Power 5, just an FBS program. No D2 coaches, no D3 coaches. So, Brandon, I have a coin here. I'm going to flip it. What do you
I
call?
don't think I can trust you. Tails. Tails never fails.
Okay. We're going to flip this coin.
This is electric podcast, right?
It is. It is tails.
I told you.
Do you want the first pick?
Yeah, I want the first pick. Are you kidding me?
All right, go ahead.
Oh man, for the next 10 years, that's the key right here, Zach.
Yes.
Oh man, this is gonna kill me, I think. Oh boy. Oh man, it's gonna be bad because I sit here almost every single episode and just
I
call
was
this
going
guy
to
a
say,
fraud
I can't wait.
and a loser and whatever else, but I'm going to go with Crybaby Dabo on my number 1 pick for the next 10 years. I think Nick Saban's getting close to retirement. While I do think he's still the best coach in college football right now, I don't know. I don't know how you don't pick Dabo if you're looking toward the future.
Yeah, he would have been my first pick. If you would have called heads and it would have landed on tails, Dabo would have been my first pick. I mean, guys, is this even really a debate here? I mean, for the next 10 years, why would you not want the best head coach of college football right now?
And he's young, or relatively young.
I mean, I would say he's young. I mean, in terms of like coaching years, he's young.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, people forget how bad Clemson was. They've really sleep on like what Dabo Swinney has done with this program.
Dabo, Zach, and you might know this, but if you had to guess how many games he's lost total since he's been a head coach, how many would you say?
Total
ever since he started coaching.
Like since not just even at I would say probably
coaching in NCAA.
I would say 25.
He's lost 30 games. 30 games
that's
total.
Ridiculous.
That's nuts, right?
That's ridiculous. Holy crap. That's crazy.
Yeah,
but
that's when he took over at Clemson. Clemson wasn't great then. I mean, he's really turned it around.
No, I'm kidding. So I guess if I had to go with my second pick for the next 10 years, I'm going to have to go with Kirby Smart, I think. I'm going to take Kirby.
No.
I mean, I think he's been one of the best new coaches out in the game right now. I think so Mark Richt always had Georgia at 9 wins. He just couldn't seem to get over the hump. Kirby Smart's been to the SEC championship every single year he's been a head coach. He won once, went to a national championship. I mean, he ran into a buzzsaw that was LSU and an Alabama team that couldn't lose behind Jalen Hurts. I mean, you can't fault him for that. So I'm going to take Kirby Smart for my first pick. And, I mean, why would you not want probably the best recruiter in the game right now?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know, man. If he leads
Well,
Georgia this year to the
yeah,
SEC championship, you got to respect him. 4 years in a row.
yeah. I mean, especially this year since Dan Mullen's in the SEC East, it's not like he's just playing nobody now. I mean, Florida's somebody now.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you guys heard I picked Florida to make the playoffs as of right now, so that's how I feel. But I guess since we're doing snake style, my second round pick is going to be Lincoln Riley. Um,
Okay, well, steal it out
another
from under me. Go ahead.
another young coach that has dominated. I mean, he's made the playoffs every single year as a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, he inherited a lot, but I'm not. Don't take anything away from him. Don't take that as I'm trashing him. I'm not.
And he's had a
Just
Heisman candidate every single year. Like Kyler Murray couldn't work at Texas A&M. So he comes to Oklahoma. What does he do? Win the Heisman first round pick. Baker Mayfield couldn't work anywhere. What does he do? Oklahoma, Lincoln Riley, Heisman Trophy. Jalen Hurts got benched at Alabama. Comes to Oklahoma, finished second in the Heisman. I mean, and now he gets probably the most dynamic quarterbacks he's ever had in his career in Spencer Rattler. And I literally cannot wait to see what he does with this kid. And Oklahoma is going to be one of those teams that I'm really on the fence about what they're going to do. But the reason I think they're going to be all right is because of Lincoln Riley.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Lincoln Riley is, and you want to talk about a young head coach, Lincoln Riley. I mean, just the poster boy right there, right? It's the poster child
Yes,
for young
a
head
thousand
coaches in
percent.
college football. Anyway, all right, I'll go and continue. My second round pick. This might hurt me more than my first pick hurt me. And I don't. No, it's not. No, it's not. I can't do this to myself. I can't do this to my fans. Um, he'll be my third round pick. Okay, my second round pick. I'm going to have to go with uh, electric radio right now, guys. But I'll go with James Franklin
I like that
from Penn
pick.
State. Yeah, I mean, we've seen what he's done with programs in the past. I mean, and not necessarily that Penn State was a bad program when he got there. There was a lot going on when he got there, obviously, but I think that he is one of the best head coaches in college football today, and I think it would be hard to pick a lot of other coaches ahead of him for the next 10 years. I mean, he's not a super old coach. He's not super young either, but I think he's got a lot of potential. Whether he stays at Penn State, builds a legacy there, or he ends up somewhere else, I think that whatever team he ends up with, he will be doing pretty big things with them.
I mean,
So
people forget what he did at Vanderbilt before he went to Penn State. I mean, he had Vanderbilt competing in the SEC.
right,
That's unheard
exactly, and
of.
that's right. And with my next pick, oh god, it's gonna hurt bad.
I already
Um,
know. Go ahead.
Dan Mullen. I hope that's who you knew.
Oh, no, that's not who I
Not
thought.
who
But
not
you
who
go
you knew.
ahead.
Oh man, Dan Mullen.
You took my pick from me. God.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. That's why I picked him right now. I wanted to pick him with the second round pick, but I had to pick him. I couldn't pick him that high. As an LSU fan, I couldn't do it to myself. So I went with Dan Mullen, and this one hurts bad. But it's just a guy. I mean, seemingly came. I'm not going to say came out of nowhere, but kind of with Mississippi State a few years ago. At least I'd never heard of him before he was there. Um,
I mean,
and now
he
look what
was
he's
the
doing. I mean,
offensive coordinator for Florida with Tim Tebow.
well, yeah, but I mean, how many like casual college football fans know?
Okay,
Hey,
yeah, I got you. I got you.
yeah. How
My
many
bad.
casual college football fans are sitting around like, oh yeah, I can name the coordinators for every school in NCAA
I,
football.
I,
Nobody.
I forgot that I was a psychopath, so just go ahead.
Yeah, you are. Anyway, so Dan Mullen, obviously, I mean, has turned Mississippi State around, has gone into Florida, turned their program around, and just seems like a coach that can really do it all. I mean, um, I don't know. It's hard to explain how good of a coach he really is, and I think he's a lot better than his record indicates. I mean, his overall record's 80 or 79 and 49. Um, but I think he's a lot better than that. I mean, he went 10-3 at Florida his first year. I mean, this past year, he ended up going was it 11-2 or
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
11-2 this past season. I see Florida trending upward as much as I hate to say that, but if Coach Ed Orgeron wasn't at LSU, I wouldn't be mad to have Coach Dan Mullen in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, Florida's beating LSU this year, guys. Book that.
No, we'll see.
So for my third pick, so this one's gonna be out of nowhere. It might be too high, but I want him on my team, and that's PJ Fleck.
Okay.
Um, in case you guys, the casual fans might not know who PJ Fleck is, row the boat, baby. He coaching Minnesota right now. He had what Central Michigan on just a Western Michigan. Yeah, my bad. I got all messed up, but on a
Jeez.
warpath when he was there. And in case you guys missed Minnesota this year, they were really, really good. Um, beat Penn State, really gave a run against Wisconsin, beat Auburn to death in the Outback Bowl. That was a 7 point win, but they beat Auburn over the top. Like, it was ugly. It was horrible. One of the worst Auburn games I remember watching. And this team has a lot of talent coming back. PJ Fleck has this talent just to get his players to play harder for him than any other coach in the country, it seems like. And I think PJ Fleck is going to turn Minnesota into something special. And I think when he finally takes a job at a established program, I think it's going to be just a game changer for whoever is lucky enough to get him. And I really, really like PJ Fleck. And I think he probably would have been around later rounds, but I didn't know how Brandon was thinking, and I couldn't have my list without including this guy on it because I would want him on my sidelines at all costs.
Right.
So, my fourth pick, man, this is getting harder and harder because there's so
Yeah,
many
it is.
good choices. Okay. So I'm gonna have to go with Mario Cristobal.
There we go. I
And
was
in case
waiting
you
for it.
guys, yeah, in case you guys don't know, head coach of Oregon, he coached at Alabama under Saban for years, and he's turning Oregon into something special. Yeah, he got. It doesn't hurt to have Justin Herbert as your quarterback, but I'm telling you guys, I think it's Shanahay. I don't know how to exactly pronounce it. Tyler Shanahay. That kid's going to be a monster, and he has C.J. Verdell back. He's got that defense that just returns almost everyone. I mean, Caden Thibodeau is an absolute monster. That is the next Myles Garrett, Chase Young type player. He's going to go high in the draft when he finally leaves. That doesn't include his ability to recruit. I mean, me and Brady kind of highlighted it. I mean, we both picked an Oregon defensive player and Noah Sewell and oh man, I forgot how to pronounce it. This is not good. This is horrible radio. The two linebackers,
Awful.
Justin Flo. I always want to say Floey,
There we
but
go.
it's Flo. Both of those linebackers were on our list for like the I guess best recruits incoming into 2020. And Mario Cristobal is building a program up in Eugene. And I think adding him to my team of coaches here just makes it even stronger. And Mario Cristobal is a top 10 head coach in college football right now.
Right. Okay. I've waited long enough. I've waited long enough. Everyone knew I was going to pick him. Come on over, Ed Orgeron. Let's go, Coach O. I have to have him on my team. So with my number 4 pick, I got to go with Coach O. We
Boo.
you talked about Kirby. Oh, shut up. You talked about Kirby Smart as a recruiter. Let's talk about Coach O as a recruiter for a second. I mean, just busting into homes the week of the national championship. I mean, a couple of days after the national championship, he's just sitting in players' living rooms recruiting. I think that people want to go play for this guy. Yeah, obviously, like you said with Mario Cristobal, it doesn't hurt to have a good quarterback on your team. It doesn't hurt to have good coaches underneath you. But I think that Coach O kind of attracts these type of coaches, this type of staff. I mean, people want to coach for him. I mean, right now we see all kind of people on his sideline. It's people almost flock to him. No matter, I mean, he's made relationships wherever he's at. A lot from USC, and so that's why we see the type of people we see on the sideline for him right now. I think that he can bring a lot of talent to your program, whether it be players, whether it be staff, whatever. And so I'm going to go ahead and move on to my fifth overall pick. I'm not going to spend too much time on Coach O. But with my last pick, and this was going to catch the entire world on fire, it's going to catch them by surprise. It's a guy that I've talked about in the past. It's probably, I mean, it's been months now since I mentioned his name. But I'm going to have to go with Luke Fickle
I
from
knew it.
Cincinnati.
I had it typed in too,
Yeah,
Ryan. I called it.
yep.
I wrote that in as soon as you started talking.
You thought I was going to get, okay. I'm glad you know me that well. Um, Yeah, Luke Fickle. He's a 46-year-old head coach at Cincinnati. He's been the interim head coach at Ohio State before, um, and he has a bright future ahead of him. And he has a long history coaching. He's been coaching college football since 1999 as a grad assistant. He's moved on to coach a lot of defensive positions, namely defensive line, linebackers. Um, he spent a ton of time at Ohio State between 2002 in 2016 before he took his first head coaching job at Cincinnati. And honestly, I thought this was a guy that may come up in the conversation for USC. He may come up in the conversation for Ohio State in the future. Um, he is a very talented head coach, and I think that he has a bright future ahead of him. I mean, 46 years old, and he already has what 21 years of coaching or 20 years of coaching experience under his belt.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's
He's good. He's a
it,
good coach.
yeah, he's real
He would
good.
have been my
He's a
pick.
guy you
He would have
lock
been
on
my
to.
pick. I mean,
Right.
you guys have seen what he's doing at Cincinnati, right? I mean, Cincinnati was ranked all last year, and they're projected to win the AAC this year. Let's not forget how good this guy is. I mean, he's straight out of the Ohio State coaching tree, too. I mean, Luke Fickle is really, really good, guys. But speaking of Ohio State, my last pick is going to be Ryan Day. Um,
Okay.
we're getting into him later in the show and how well he's doing on the recruiting trail. But I mean, yeah, 1 year coach like head coaching experience, but to make the playoffs and almost beat Clemson, pretty good sample size there. I like the result, and he's building a program up in Columbus, and I really, really like what he's doing. I think he has a vision. I think he's personable. I think he has the energy, the creativeness, the mind to really be successful moving forward. And for me, I think the narrative of he's doing it with Urban Meyer's players is ending this next season. I think Ryan Day is about to make a name for himself, and Ryan Day is going to have Ohio State in the national championship race this season again, and for the foreseeable future, as we'll get into in our last segment today. So I'm going to round out my starting lineup with Ryan Day. And so honorable mention. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going Nick Saban.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I can't believe neither one of us mentioned him. And like I said, the first thing I said was that for the next 10 years you want to have this head coach. And I don't
yeah,
know. I mean, Nick Saban, he who knows where he's going to be in 10 years. He might not be coaching at all.
yeah,
He's
but
68 years old.
I'm taking the chance. I think he loves coaching. I think, even if I get another 5 to 6 years of prime Nick Saban, I'm taking it. So I think, he might not be in my starting lineup because all these other coaches are young, fresh, going to be around for at least probably 20 years. And Nick Saban will not be here for 20 years. He might not be here for 10, but I'm willing to bet on the success he's going to bring me early.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I definitely get what you're saying there. Honorable mentions. This is tough. Maybe like David Shaw from Stanford. I mean, have we seen what he's been doing there? You know what his overall coaching record is, Zach? 82 and
I,
26. That's pretty
I
good,
guess,
right?
but they've been on the downswing, man. Stanford's been trending very, very quickly down recently.
You don't think he's a good head coach?
I think he's all right. I don't think
He's
he's
all right.
mentioned right now.
All right, Jim Harbaugh.
Hell no. Are you
We're taking the
serious?
chance. We're taking the chance.
No. You're taking the
Zach,
chance of what?
Zach
To
loves
lose to
Jim
Ohio
Harbaugh.
State every single year? Lose to
I don't
Penn
know.
State over half the time? Lose to Michigan State half the time? Never win a bowl game?
You hate this guy, huh? You
He is
really do.
garbage. He is so garbage.
Okay. Okay.
Ah, I see. I thought you were gonna do like Dave Aranda, Mark Stoops, Mike Gundy, like someone like
Jimbo
that.
Fisher.
I like Jimbo Fisher. That's honor. That's a great honorable mention.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make you happy now. Let's.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
So who's like your actual pick?
I don't know. I mean, I'm tossing names out. I don't need an actual honorable mention. We already chose 5 head coaches
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. But guys,
each.
we'll get this on social media. Give us your opinion. Who would your 5 coaches be for the next 10 years? But right now, we are going to move to our next segment, previewing the 2020 season. Uh, there's always teams with high expectations coming into each season who fall short of these lofty goals that the fans, media, coaches around the country set for the team. You look at teams last year like Michigan and Texas who had top 10 rankings in the preseason, but ultimately fell far short of those rankings by the end. We're in the month of April, about 6 months till the first kick of the season, hopefully. It's perfect time to look way too far ahead again. We already gave our dark horses for next season, and why not go ahead and look at who could be the next major disappointment in college football? Brandon, looking ahead, which team has the country, experts, whoever fooled and will ultimately fail to live up to these lofty preseason expectations that people are giving them?
It's tough because you say who has the country fooled. I mean, I know we have like the way too early rankings right now, but we don't really have like a true, hey, here's the team. So my choice here was it was a difficult one, and it's one that I don't wish on this team, but I could definitely see it happening. Um, I'm going to go with Baylor. Baylor's the team. They just came off of what's it called? I mean, what was the record last season? They finished. Well, I think they
That,
only lost to Oklahoma those 2 games.
yeah, and then they lost to Georgia in the Sugar Bowl.
Yeah, but I mean, what a crazy run for them. I mean, a team that no one expected doing that.
They had
Under Coach
one
Matt
win like
Rule.
2 years ago.
That's what I'm saying. And so, it's obviously a team that people are pretty high on right now. Even with Matt Rule gone, they just hired maybe one of the best defensive minds in college football in Dave Aranda to replace him. But and I've been on this tangent before. We haven't seen Dave Aranda, the head coach. We don't know how he's going to react in this situation. We don't know. I mean, we know how good of a leader he can be. Obviously, he's had the opportunity to show that, wherever he's been. With LSU, with Wisconsin, with I think he was with Hawaii before that. I can't remember. Anyway, but um, but a head coaching role is a lot different than a coordinator role. And so while I would like to think that Baylor could, just stay where they're at, maybe even trend upward in this Big 12 conference, which may not be like the hardest thing in the world to do. I guess getting past Oklahoma is probably the hardest thing in this conference, but I don't know. For some reason, there's just something telling me that this Baylor team is going to fall off, and I don't think they revert all the way back to how they were a few years ago, winning 1 game. But I can definitely see this team finishing like 7-6, or like 7-5, maybe 7-6 with a bowl game win.
Yeah, I like that pick. I think that Dave Aranda is going to have to find his rhythm, man. I mean, Matt Rule did big things for that program, and I think it's going to be hard to replicate it with Dave Aranda. I think they're two totally different coaching styles. I like that pick, but I'm going to go to Athens with my pick. I'm going to pick the Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh, okay.
ESPN has them ranked 4th. I think this team lost a lot of talent. I think they lost all but one offensive starter, I believe, maybe 2, depending on how you look at who started for their O-line for the majority of the season due to injuries. But really, George Pickens is the only starter from last season, in my opinion, and they lost a lot of offense. They lost a lot of talent just in general to the NFL draft and transfer portal. They have a new offensive coordinator in Todd Monken, and I think he has his work cut out for him. I mean, he has talent, but he has a lot of inexperience, and especially in a season where spring practice is eliminated, summer workouts are going to be cut short, fall practice most likely will be cut short. I mean, to come in and have almost a whole new starting lineup and you miss so many practices does not bode well for inexperienced young teams like Georgia. The defense should be stout again, but can the Bulldogs score enough? You saw against South Carolina and LSU last season that they could not score enough to stay in these games. Um, and then the schedule, extremely difficult for Georgia. They have a trip to Tuscaloosa against Alabama in week 3. That means this team has to click immediately in the season. And to add on top of that, you have the reigning ACC Coastal champions, Virginia, coming to Atlanta for a week 1 showdown. So that's 2 games in the first 2-3 weeks where Georgia's got to be on their A game. They don't have time to mesh and learn and make those early mistakes. They're going to have to come out and play good football to, be undefeated. And then you have the Auburn game moving up into October, which even further accelerates the development of these younger players. And in that same month, you have to go play Florida in your most important rivalry game. And then you throw in sneaky, under the radar road trips to Kentucky and South Carolina, both of which are on the upswing, especially with Kentucky getting Joey Gatewood in at quarterback. And then you have South Carolina, who was really catching their rhythm late in the season last year. I see this Georgia team slipping up a lot along the way, and they're gonna underperform in Smart's, next season. And as much as I like Kirby Smart, I picked him as, my number 1 coach in this last segment. I think when you just have the cards and everything fall like they did this year for Georgia, I think it's gonna bode, really poorly for the Georgia Bulldogs. And if spring practice didn't get canceled and fall practice and everything was not in doubt, I don't think I would put Georgia on this list, but I think everything fell incorrectly for this team.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's been a ton of off the field issues there too. Players transferring because their dad's fingers got caught in chairs.
Got cut off in chairs. I mean, come
Yeah.
on, man. I mean, how bad do you think they wish they had Justin Fields still?
Oh man, it's what a.
I mean,
I don't know. Maybe that one player shouldn't have said what he said to Justin Fields. Zach thinks it's fake, but who
no, I
knows?
don't think it's fake. I think that I don't know if
I
you
don't know,
should get. I
man.
mean,
You seem
I
you
did
seem
not
like
say it
a
was
real
fake.
Georgia truther out here. You sound like a real Georgia truther.
Yeah, the bad
That's
part is
not
just
what
like
I
a
heard.
baseball player too. Like, are you serious?
You're seriously going to put it past the University of Georgia to?
No,
I'm
no,
not
no.
doing
I'm
that.
just saying, like, bro, that baseball player got to lose a scholarship, man. You just lost a potential Heisman Trophy winner because, like, you couldn't just keep your mouth shut. Like him and that baseball player, Mike Leach, need to go to the same class and learn when to like not talk. Um, and,
You gotta learn some tolerance. Go to a
yeah,
tolerance class.
no kidding. I mean, shout out to the Mississippi State athletic director for coming for Leach's head this week. But Brandon, would you like to hear an honorable mention in this segment?
Zach, you always have an honorable mention, so just go ahead.
I do. And it's the LSU Tigers down in Baton Rouge.
I don't. You know what? I take it back. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear an honorable mention. We've all heard this before, Zach. This isn't news.
I know. I just wanted to mess with you because, like, they have LSU ranked 8th in the way too early. Like, 8th? You think that is the 8th best team in the country?
Maybe. I don't know. Probably
Nah,
not.
bro.
Maybe.
Nah. I don't even know if they're a top 20, but that's
It's
just,
ridiculous now.
no, it's not. How is it ridiculous? Like, you lose the second best defense coordinator of the country, probably the best offensive mind in the country in Joe Brady, the best quarterback. You lose 9 underclassmen, multiple seniors, and you're just like, oh,
Zach,
Derek Stingley's going to save us.
we've done this before. I'm not going to go through this again. I'm not going to. This is ridiculous. Let's get some new content out here.
I'm gonna put up a vote on social media. Where is
They
LSU going to
can't
finish
be
next
trusted,
year?
Zach. They can't be trusted. Why would we put them a vote?
You already trashed them. They're just going to be like, LSU, cancel the program, done.
Cancel it, yeah.
Coach O will be like, listen, I will send y'all all crawfish. Please leave us alone. We are cool down here.
Come on.
Oh my God. But so we'll move on to our last segment of this episode. And, the 2021 recruiting cycle is going to be probably the most unique and unpredictable recruiting cycles in history. Due to the COVID-19 outbreak, it's going to change the way this cycle operates, when commits can visit, which in turn will affect when they commit. One school is not having any problem on the recruiting trail, though, and that is the Ohio State Buckeyes and Ryan Day. Um, you know, the Buckeyes had the most commits in the 2021 recruiting cycle with 15. But out of those 15, 3 of them are 5 stars, which includes the number 3 player in the country in Jack Sawyer. The class is by far the deepest in the country with 10 4-star recruits, and all 15 players are within the top 500 of the 247 composite rankings. So, Brandon, one, what are your initial thoughts on this class? 2, why do you think Ohio State is making such a strong run early in this class? And with all the experts questioning how Ryan Day can continue the success in Columbus after Urban Meyer, does this class show that he has a handle on this?
Yes, because you mentioned that all 15 of these hard recruits or hard commits for Ohio State right now are in the top 500. I mean, let's talk about how their top 10 recruits are in the top 100. I mean, their number 10 recruit right now is number 93 overall. He's a 4-star. It's insanity out here. But yeah, I mean, 3 5 stars at this point in the recruiting cycle is ridiculous. Obviously we got Jack Sawyer, but not only that, they have Kyle McCord, who is a guy that I've had my eye on for a little while now. I mean, he's been committed for almost a full year now. They're getting a few new commits. Travion Henderson out of Hopewell, Virginia. He's a running back, 5-star running back, committed back in March. I mean, just about a week ago. But other than that, I mean, he's just reeling in these recruits. He has another recruit that committed on March 15th of this year. He has one that committed on March 16th. It's just to see these recruits coming in at this time is insane. I don't know how you do it. I mean, are you on the phone? Are you just like FaceTiming these kids, or what's going on? I mean, do you know?
I mean, so personally, I think it's the relationships that he's built with these kids. They don't need to come to campus anymore. They don't need to meet with these coaches. They know what the deal is. They've built that. I think they've laid the groundwork where this COVID-19 isn't affecting their class as much as some other schools. Like we highlighted Alabama with 1 recruit a few weeks ago. They still only have 1 recruit, Brandon, and they just lost a recruit tonight in Micah Morris, a top 100 offensive tackle. They lost him to Georgia. So other classes are struggling, and this class is on pace to rival some of the best classes in recruiting history. I mean, we've already highlighted what they have, but the big thing is the positions they're getting. Last year, they had 3 of the top 6 wide receivers in the previous recruiting class, but in this class, they have an elite pass rusher in Jack Sawyer, the number 3 player in the country. Brandon already highlighted the elite playmaking running back Travion Henderson, and then they also have an elite strong arm top 20 player quarterback in Kyle McCord. It's loaded. It's deep in its potential, and it can only get better. Tonight, a 5-star cornerback, I forget his name. There's so many of these recruits, but a 5-star cornerback listed Ohio State as his leading school and dropped his top 5 tonight. So Ohio State's in the running for another 5-star cornerback. I mean, and for me, just I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the big one, I mean, obviously is Jack Sawyer, and if you haven't seen this guy's tape, go watch it. I mean, and the kind of players that come out of Ohio State, the kind of recruits that go into Ohio State. Jack Sawyer is the 3rd highest ranked player to ever go into Ohio State. Think about that. I mean, he's higher than Nick Bosa was coming out of high school. So, listen, this guy has real potential to be just a complete game changer for this program. And I mean, he's not. I mean, he is the best player they have this recruiting cycle so far. But this recruiting cycle has another year to go. So I don't know. It is crazy to me.
And Jack Sawyer might be the highest rated, but Travion Henderson, in my opinion, is going to be the best player in this class currently of what they have. I mean, turn on the tape, like Brandon said, Henderson, every time he touches the ball, it could be a touchdown. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't see a weakness in this kid's game right now. I mean, this kid is elite, guys. And I mean, for me, why is this happening? I think it's relationships, like I told Brandon, but I also think it's the vision. I think it's the vision of Ryan Day. So the problem here is people kept saying, "Oh, he's winning because of Urban Meyer's talent. Can he handle it? Can he step in with a legend?" But the reality seems to me now is it's now becoming that Ryan Day was Meyer's top assistant for years, and I think he I think Meyer groomed him to be successful. He wasn't that, oh, we're just going to throw this. You don't think, because Urban Meyer is still in a administrative role for the athletic department. You don't think Meyer was like, hey, this is the guy you need. Ryan Day is going to step in.
Oh yeah.
Urban Meyer told Ohio State this is who they should hire. I think Urban Meyer knew this guy's potential. I think it's very similar to Kirby Smart, Nick Saban. You saw as soon as Kirby Smart left Nick Saban's shadow, he's doing huge things in Georgia at Georgia, and I see the same thing here with Ryan Day. I think he's young, creative, relatable, and he knows he encompasses the Ohio State brand, in my opinion. I mean, given the brand doesn't need a lot of selling, guys. Ohio State's one of the most recognizable schools in the country, but when you also on top of that have a great salesman and a relatable coach and one that players like to play for, and the ones that can relate to recruits, that only makes it so much more dangerous for a program like this. And, another thing, Brandon, I think people forget is how talent rich the state of Ohio is in high school football. People
Oh
get
yeah.
caught up. People get caught up in the Floridas, the Georgias, the Texas, the Californias. Ohio has turned out some talent. Mr. Joe Burrow is from Athens, Ohio.
Oh yeah.
People seem to forget that. Jack Sawyer, we highlighted him, 5-star defensive end from Ohio. Jaden Ballard, 4-star wide receiver out of Ohio. Reed Carrico, 4-star inside linebacker out of Ohio. Mike Hall, 4-star defensive tackle out of Ohio. All 5 of these players are in this recruiting class. They're all top 100 players in the 247 composite. Ohio State has locked down this state, guys. If there's a top 100 player from Ohio, he is going to be donning that scarlet and gray when he gets to college. Ohio State has mastered this, and people just keep forgetting how talented the state is. I mean, I just listed 5 top 100 players, and those are just the ones that are committed right now to Ohio State. And that's not even including that Travion Henderson is from what? Would you say, Virginia?
Yeah. Hopeful
So
Virginia.
they can reach to Virginia. They had a recruit in this class out of Colorado. They have the nationwide reach of a national brand, but they also focused on locking down the state. And I think the thing that helps this is there's really not another major program in the state. You have Cincinnati. It is what it is. Not even Power Five. Alabama has Auburn. Georgia has Georgia Tech. Clemson has South Carolina. Florida has Miami. Has Miami and Florida State. The only other state you kind of see this with is LSU, who really don't have another power, but Louisiana is not as a talent rich state as I think Ohio, Georgia, etc. So the fact that they're in this talent loaded state and they're by themselves on a lot of these recruits, I think that's why you see this class growing. And finally, the last thing, Brandon, I'm sure you can totally agree with this. Their domination of the Big Ten can only help here, right? I mean, they
Oh
have
yeah.
owned this conference for how long? I would say upwards of almost 10 years now.
Uh, Maybe 10. It's for sure been 6.
Yeah, it easily 6. I mean, they won the championship in 2015, guys. So it's at least 5 years. And I don't I make this argument with Jim Harbaugh all the time. He still hasn't beat Ohio State. I mean, Brandon, can you name the last time Michigan beat Ohio State?
Off the top of my head, absolutely not.
You want to know why? So just think,
Why? Because
if you had to guess, when's the last time Michigan won?
uh, 2013,
No,
2012.
2011.
No, I was gonna get there sooner or later.
I would hope so. Like you just have to go
Just go
backwards.
back
Like
one year at a time.
2011, they beat Ohio State by 7.
Oh my gosh.
every
Yeah,
single
yeah.
year. And then, okay, so going past 2011, the last time they beat Ohio State was 2003.
Yeah, that's gonna be a big yikes for me. That's tough.
That's going to be a huge yikes. I mean, come on, man. I mean, Michigan has only beaten Ohio State 3 times since 2000.
Holy cow. Yeah,
That
I mean,
people overlook
it
that.
really do be like that. It
I
really do
mean,
be like
if I
that.
would have told you that before this episode, you probably would have been like, "Dude, stop! Just stop! You're lying." It
Yeah,
just doesn't even sound real because people forget Ohio State was in the championship in what 2007 against Florida or six.
yes.
I mean, and
And
they
2007 against LSU.
yeah, and they won it in 15. Plus, they were in the playoffs in 16 when they lost to Clemson, and they won the national championship in 2002 against Miami. So this Ohio State's really, really good, guys. And the other thing is Michigan, to me, on the downswing. Jim Harbaugh is losing that luster. He's not as an elite recruiter as I've highlighted on this show. Go check the tapes, guys. He is not an elite recruiter. There's no data to support that, so stop that narrative. Um, Wisconsin's really good, but Wisconsin's not an elite recruiting school. I mean, how if I was a kid being recruited, why am I going to Wisconsin? Unless I'm a running back, maybe, or an offensive lineman. Why are you going to Wisconsin? No one wants to go to Wisconsin. And the only other two schools that are on the upswing are Penn State and Minnesota. Penn State's really, really good, and I think they're the only team that's really going to compete going down the line. And PJ Fleck is building something in Minnesota, but who wants to go play in Minnesota? Yeah,
It'd
Minneapolis
be
is a
fun.
cool town, but like I've been to Minneapolis. It's a really, really nice place. So I mean,
Oh,
it's
dude,
better than
sick. That's
Wisconsin.
super cool brag.
I hate it though. The reason I went there, it was not my favorite place anymore. I will never go back to Minneapolis ever again. But that's
Yeah,
another story.
you ever been to Virginia?
I've not
Oh,
been to Virginia.
oh, that's tough. Oh, that's tough, though, Zach. You don't even get it. That's fine. Let's move on.
I do. I really, we can't, social distances, guys. We can fight about it, but we're all the way across the country. But I mean, PJ Fleck's doing his thing, but I don't think, I mean, Penn State has this brand, I guess, but I don't think there's a bigger brand in the Big Ten than Ohio State. With the
Right.
horseshoe and just everything he's doing, I think Ryan Day is so underrated right now. I had my doubts last season. Y'all can check. I did going into the season. I'm like, can this dude do it without, Urban Meyer's recruits? But looking at his recruiting class, what he did with the team he had this year with Justin Fields and putting him in great situations and developing those players like he did this season, I think Ryan Day's for real, and I think this recruiting class only adds to his mystique and his credibility.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Guys, I do want to mention this. I know that I talked about watching Jack Sawyer's tape. Go do it, please. I've been watching for the better part of 6 minutes now, just while Zach's been going on about whatever he's been
Ranting.
going on about. Yeah, I've been watching for 6 minutes. This guy plays defensive end, wide receiver, quarterback. It may be the most impressive thing I've ever seen. It's crazy.
I mean, he's a beast, guys. I've watched the tape of him and Travion Henderson, just outstanding recruits. I mean, I know not everyone's a psychopath and watches and pays attention to recruiting like I do, but if you have 15 minutes, go check out his huddle film. Find it on YouTube. I mean, find it on 247 Sports, wherever you want to do. But we're gonna wrap this episode up now, guys. Appreciate you guys tuning in again. We keep bringing y'all 2 episodes a week. No content. And personally, okay, Brandon, I'm gonna talk a little bit. We are the only podcast out here bringing y'all real content 2 times a week with no sports content. Um, Shout out to you guys for tuning in for that. Let us know what y'all want to hear, anything else. Keep voting. Tomorrow, the bracket for the best head coaches in college football history starts tomorrow. Voting on Instagram at @the_Blue Bloods. Vote on Facebook at the Blue Bloods Pod. And finally, vote on Twitter at @the_Blue Bloods. Links, polls, everything will be on there. Instagram will be on our story. It'll just be on our Twitter page, and there will be a link on our Facebook page for that. And if you can't find it, just comment on the picture we post of it and let us know who you vote for. We will count it like that. Yeah, don't piss Brandon off again. So I'll let Brandon decide who he wants to win. That way you guys can not let him down again.
Yeah, no more chances. This is the last one. If you don't do it right this time, you don't get the fourth bracket.
That's true. You only get 3 brackets. But website, thebluebloodspod.com. You can find all the links to the podcast on there. Articles like our mock draft, preview for the conferences for this next season. You find us literally everywhere. I think Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We have a YouTube page. Just type in the Blue Bloods. All our videos are on there. Let us know what y'all think. Rate the podcast. You can rate it on Apple Podcasts. I think is really the only place that ratings show up. It's weird. Like I said, follow us on social media. But for right now, we out.